Welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. As you may have seen, as you may have not seen, I have been going through a lot of changes in my diet and in my health recently, and I just want to chat to everybody about what has been happening. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I've been working on my health and investigating health related stuff for years and years now. It's over 5 years ago, I had a period where I was really feeling really bad. I was clinically depressed. I was overweight, had no energy. Altogether, my health wasn't too great. And of course, at that time, my diet also wasn't too healthy, as these things go. But yeah, if you have depression and you try and get help for that, often what you end up with is some type of antidepressant drug. Now, these have their place, and I'm certainly not against them, and they've helped me in some ways get past some stuff, but soon enough, it just didn't work for me, and it just didn't start working against me. So I started looking for different ways of fixing my mental and physical health. Skip a few years, I have been investigating lots of techniques. I've read lots about all sorts of topics around mental and physical health and tried all sorts of stuff. And I was doing a lot better. The one thing that wasn't that great, though, still, was my diet. All along, I did make improvements and I did lose some of the weight that I needed to lose. However, altogether, it still wasn't at all where I wanted it to be. And I knew this. But for the longest time, it was like, all right, what I'm eating is healthy enough. And I'm feeling so much better than I was that it's good enough for now. I had been a very emotional eater as well for the longest time. And so as long as I was feeling well enough, I was eating well enough. And changing your diet is hard, is what I thought. And so I always put it off and was like, one day I will completely fix it. But since I'm healthier than I was, everything's fine for now. I ended up at one point following a slow carb diet for a while and not sticking to it completely, but I ended up in a pattern of having sort of like 5 days a week where I was eating semi-low carb, semi-healthy, and then 2 days where I was just eating whatever came up, which was usually a lot of crap and not very great foods. But I figured 5 out of 7, if that's the best I can do, better than most people maybe, better than I was certainly, so good enough. Now, I kept telling myself this, but I always knew deep down that even though this was working for the moment, it was not sustainable. Like I said, with the emotional eating, I always knew that if something, as long as I was feeling good, it would be okay. But if something happened that really got me down, if I would happen to get depressed again, or whatever would happen that really brought me down, I knew that my diet would plummet with it as well. And that the way I was going there was just, I was just barely hanging on, and it would break. It took a couple of years, but last year, of course, was a pretty strange year and a pretty rough year for everybody. And I managed to stay pretty healthy throughout. The most of the year was pretty fine. I got into some workout programs even, and during summer it was really going great. And then towards the end of the year, a couple of things happened, and I was finally at the point that I'd always been dreading. A couple of things happened in short succession, and one of which was another lockdown in the Netherlands, and that all just brought me down so much that my diet went out the window. Where I was eating eating healthily 5 days a week. Hello. 5 days a week usually. It now became 4 days, and then 3 days, and then 2 days, and we got to a point where every other day was just eating junk, and that was in the best scenario. Often it would be days of eating fast food, unhealthy, whatever, and then one day of sort of being able to stick to the diet again. Now this would have been okay if it helped me feel better. But it made me feel worse in every way. I felt myself slipping not only in diet, but I felt that my willpower in general was getting harder, or getting worse. I felt that my energy throughout the day was getting worse. My sleep was really suffering. My brain wasn't working right anymore. It felt like I didn't even have the energy to string two thoughts together. And my tendency to procrastinate really, really took over. Now, the annoying thing about all of this in such a time is that this all works together to make it more and more complicated to actually fix the root cause. Fixing your diet is hard enough, but if you are procrastinating everything you're doing, and if you don't have energy to cook or to even think about what your diet should be, it can become close to impossible. That's not to say that I did not try it though. I definitely I knew what was happening, and so I did try and give it my best. And when I noticed myself slipping this much, I decided, okay, you're going through a bit of a rough patch. You know, that's fine. Everybody has that. Don't be too hard on yourself because that'll only make it worse. Don't punish yourself. You know, today you had pizza. It's not the best food, but it's also not the worst. Tomorrow, we'll just start again. We'll get back to your diet. We'll get back to cooking something. We can even already make sure you have the groceries so everything is ready to go. It'll be easy. From tomorrow on, we'll just restart. That usually lasted one day, if that. And then my emotions took over and I just found myself not cooking and ordering in again. So that wasn't working. All right. But something needed to change. So just forcing myself into eating good foods didn't work. Maybe if I try again. And then again, it didn't work. So I tried again. And again. And again. And what do you know? Trying the exact same thing over and over actually gives you the exact same result every time. Who would have thought? I knew that what I was doing wasn't working, but at the time it felt like, I couldn't think, so just the easiest way is I'll just get back to it and force myself. After time, though, I had to admit, even to myself, that this was not sustainable. And I had to find something else. Now, in some areas, I really like data and tracking my own data and markers as a way to actually experiment properly and guide myself into doing what I want to do, knowing that what I'm doing has the effect that I expect. I have measured my sleep for years in different ways. I have played around with apps for tracking exactly what you eat. I have even done tracking my mood throughout the day when I did an Uberman regimen, which is a whole different experiment that I might talk about at some point, because depriving yourself of sleep has very interesting effects. Not necessarily positive, but data is always the best way, at least for me, for my sleep. If I can see the way I'm regularly sleeping, and then I have a night out with friends and I can see that my sleep was really crap, then it's clear, okay, this caused this. And then if I go to bed on time the next day and my sleep is great again, then you can really clearly start to see patterns like this. And this was an easy one, of course, but things like the way food influences markers like that. So my thoughts at this point were, what if I had more data on what the food I was eating was actually doing to me? Then maybe it would make the decision making easier and would take some of the willpower out of it. In the health and biohacking space, lately, continuous glucose monitoring has become really popular. You want to generally avoid having spikes in your glucose, and if you can continuously monitor what everything that you're eating is doing to your glucose levels, then you can see which foods spike your glucose and avoid those foods. Now, a company in the Netherlands also started offering this type of tracking. So I thought, great, I'll just try out this program. I can see exactly which foods spike my glucose. I can eliminate those foods from my diet. My problem is solved. So I did this. You get this plastic hockey puck that you stab into your arm and have sitting there for 2 weeks. And with your phone, you can actually read the data that it's collecting. So for 2 weeks, I went through that, religiously scanning after every meal, religiously writing down everything I was eating and drinking and seeing what it was doing to me. But did that help? At the end of these 2 weeks, I had to come to the conclusion that my diet had changed in these 2 weeks, but it had become worse. Looking back at what I had been doing is that having this monitor, I'd kind of given myself a sort of free pass to eat whatever and try out and see what the data is. Now, none of the data was surprising. I knew that if I ate a very carby meal or a chocolate bar with lots of sugar, I knew that it would spike my levels. I've now proven that it spiked my levels, but nobody was questioning this. And more importantly, after seeing that, I still continued to eat it. All of the things that I ate that I thought were bad for me proved, even via this method, to be bad for me. But my behavior hadn't really changed, except that I'd become even more careless with what I ate, and I was feeling worse still. So all in all, not the greatest results. But I mean, you got to try stuff out and just see what happens, you know? But at this point, I had to admit that I had to start taking more drastic measures. Just double checking if it's all going, and it is. There's this company that I've been following called Mind Valley, who offer online courses in the space of personal development. Everything from having kind of meditation trainings to how to handle money, to health and fitness, to I think they even have something on how to handle divorce. A really, really wide spectrum of courses, all on personal transformational learning. I've been following them for a couple of years and I have taken a couple of courses. It's a really interesting company that aligns with a lot of values that I have. They offer a lot of free content as well, a lot of masterclasses and pre-recorded sessions that they just share on YouTube or share as promotion for paid courses that they're doing. And of course they have a podcast, because everybody nowadays has a podcast. I've been following a lot of these especially the free content, because I mean, it is free. Why wouldn't I use that? The owner and founder of the company, Vishen Lakhiani, does talks by himself as well, besides running the company and talking about introducing the other people. And in one of his talks, or actually more correctly, in multiple of his talks, he has talked about the things that have helped him in his diet, and in particular the program called WILDFIT. Now, I am skeptical by nature, but especially when you talk about diet and health programs, I am very skeptical. There is a lot of scamming that happens in this space. There's a lot of misinformation that happens. My main association with going on a diet is people trying out a diet because they want to lose weight and then gaining weight and being even more unhappy than they were when they started, which is not a great advertisement. So naturally, when I hear about a diet or a way of eating or something that will drastically improve your health, I am very skeptical. And so when he was talking about this program, at first I didn't really pay it any mind. But he kept bringing it up throughout different talks he did, and seeing his progress was really inspiring. The main thing here is that because of all of the content I know from Mind Valley and the programs that I have done from Mind Valley, I know that their quality of stuff is really high. And when Vishen recommends something, I know that it is worth my time. I blindly trust that whatever he recommends is worth my time, because every time he has recommended something and I've tried it out in the past, it has proven to be valuable. So this diet program, I decided kind of, all right, Vishen is talking about it, so it must be good. And then you hear the way that he's talking about it. He's saying that it transformed his health in such a profound way that he immediately bought the program for all of his colleagues, all of his employees. And he immediately contacted Eric Edmeades, the founder of the WILDFIT program, and got him on board on Mind Valley, so Mind Valley could actually offer this program. Now, you wouldn't do this if you weren't absolutely convinced that this program is good. So it definitely piqued my interest after I learned all this. It's been a couple of years since I have heard him talk about it for the first time. And I was interested enough that I thought I should do this one day. But as often happens if you are in a scarcity mindset, which I often was and still sometimes am, is that it becomes about the money. This program was a lot of money, and once I saw the price, I was like, okay, I'm sure this is valuable, and one day when I'm rich, or I have won the lottery, or whatever happens, then I might do this. Again, my diet is good enough for it now, so why would I care to go through a diet program if I'm doing fine? kept this up for a couple of years, and sometimes it surfaced again, maybe because they were promoting it, or otherwise I thought about it, or otherwise I wasn't too happy about my diet at some points. But in general, I kept coming up with the same excuses. I don't need to do this right now. I don't have the money for it. I don't even know if it's worth it, really. Once you start trying to find objections, you can always find a long list of them. But being at the point where I was at the start of this year, I knew I had to do something drastic. And this program once again came up in my memory. So I started to question again, maybe I should go through this program. Yeah, but I don't know. It's a lot of effort and you're already in a rough patch. And it's a lot of money. You don't even have any money left at this point. It probably won't help anyway. So I kept going back and forth for a couple of weeks or maybe months. And then I decided, okay, my health is still declining. My diet is still really crappy. I have to do something. And I'm out of other options. I'm out of ideas. So I again started, or not again, for the first time, I started to actually seriously look into this program. The interesting thing I noticed is that their approach is radically different from any program that I had seen prior to this, in that most diets, I knew at least, really focus on giving you rules to follow. For example, the slow carb diet that I was actually pretty positive about is don't eat white starchy foods, have one cheat day, and some other rules that I don't remember. It's been a couple of years, guys. Lots of other diets I'd heard of. The ketogenic diet is something that I'd vaguely heard of, where people were talking about, okay, you can not have any carbs ever at all, which isn't true, but I mean, this is what I'd heard until then. Harsh rules. You cannot have this. You have to have this. Eat 5 times a day in small portions. Eat only twice a day in big portions. All of these rules. But what this program was focusing on was the psychology behind eating. As I had discovered earlier through my other efforts, I knew what to eat. I knew what not to eat. I knew which foods were good for me. I knew which foods weren't. I didn't know it in depth for every single food item, because what is healthy and what isn't is a very difficult debate. But I had a general idea. There are pretty good guidelines that most people in the space agree upon, and I had known these for years. So following new diets, following new programs that gave me what would probably be the same rules, that of course that wouldn't work. If you just give me the same information that I already have, then why am I following the program? But the psychology, this piqued my interest, because I knew the rules. But what I didn't know, what my biggest struggle was, is why am I eating what I'm eating? I knew I didn't want to eat pizza, at least not every day. But I was doing it anyway, and I didn't know exactly why. And I didn't know that why when I decided in the morning, I'm just gonna cook some nice broccoli and sweet potatoes this evening, I would end up sitting there with a pizza. I knew the rules, but I wasn't applying them. So this program promised to address exactly this part. And knowing that, it started to become really clear that I needed to follow this. But it goes to show how strong this attachment to scarcity can be. I knew in my gut that this would be the right decision, that I had to follow this. I knew it, and I didn't do it. I started looking for ways out, started looking for ways to rationalize for myself how I could not follow it. Now, luckily, they've done something really smart, which they hadn't, or I hadn't seen before for this program anyway. And they had actually made an offer where you could follow the first 2 weeks of the program for, of course, a massively reduced price. Because of that, I finally was able to convince myself I need to do this. So, this bit of money I can sort of spend. So I'll just go for the 2 weeks. That'll probably be enough, right? I mean, how much do I even need? I know what to do anyway, so those 2 weeks will be enough, and then it will save me money, and we'll be in our way. I went through and bought 2 weeks, and quickly enough, I think 3 days in, it became very clear to me that I needed to continue on with the full program, and that this was going to be an interesting journey. And so I did. One thing that I'm also very happy about here is that at that point I decided, okay, even if I'm just gonna do the 2 weeks, I want to document this and hold myself accountable, because the way I've been with programs in the past, and especially at this point where I was procrastinating everything and not really giving much effort to anything, I would let myself get hyped up to start something and then immediately lose interest and not really go through with it. And that, of course, doesn't really help in creating lasting change. So I decided I'm going to make myself accountable. And something I've been wanting to do for years, but never dared, because it's scary to put yourself out there. I finally did, and I said, okay, I'm just going to create videos for YouTube to make visible that I'm doing this, and to make sure that at least somebody will ask, hey, what happened if I stop uploading and stop following the program? So that was a good decision. What is the program actually? Because I went through the 2 weeks, and then the following 11 weeks, I also, like I said, I emptied out my bank account and I just went full on. Fully immersed myself, fully committed, decided to create the videos to keep myself even more accountable. and I just went into it. So the WILDFIT program, or challenge as they call it, it's a 90-day challenge where you go through the program with a group of people. You get 2 videos every week from the founder, Eric, to give you some information and to give you some enhancements or changes that you're going through for that week. Excuse me. And of course, as also with most programs these days, there is a Facebook group where everybody who is going through it with you can share their experiences and share whatever's happening. What was also really cool is that we had not just the videos, but an actual live coach that guided us through it. He went live every week to give us some extra info and to answer our questions and stuff like that. So it wasn't just a video course, but it was actually an interactive experience for everybody. Now, the promise of food freedom is a really big one in WILDFIT. And the way they explain this is that what you often hear when talking about diets is that people know that they want to lose a few pounds or that they need to be healthier, but often what their objection is, yeah, but I don't want to be too strict. I want to have freedom in what I eat. I just want to eat what I eat and when I eat it, and I want to enjoy life. I don't want to be so strict and everything to get, I want to enjoy it and have freedom. Two things in that statement that pop up. Enjoying your life is, of course, I would guess everybody's wish, but if you're enjoying your life through eating all sorts of crappy foods, how much are you enjoying your life? Maybe at first, but how much are you enjoying your life if you start to get sick? How much are you enjoying your life when you get random aches and joint pains and stuff like that? How much are you enjoying your life if you're getting stomach cramps for no reason, if you have low energy every day, and if you have a 4 o'clock slump like most people do? That is personal pet peeve. Like, are you really enjoying life in that way? But the second thing is the freedom. Sure, there's this story that Eric tells around freedom about, okay, he's talking to one of his potential clients, and they're saying, okay, I know you have a health program, I know it all sounds amazing, but I just want to have freedom in what I eat. I just want to eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it. So Eric says, okay, that's all well and good, but can you not eat what you don't want to eat? It gets you confused there. So let me explain. So say you have a favorite food. You want to eat what you want to eat. What is your favorite food? Guy goes, now, I love pizza. You can wake me up in the middle of the night to have a slice. Eric goes, okay, so you love pizza. Yeah. You really love pizza. So say you're at work and you have all just gone out to lunch, had a fantastic lunch, everything you could desire, you're all filled up, and one of your coworkers comes into the office and goes, guess what, guys? I just got us all pizza. What would you do? So he says, no, Well, I would have a slice, of course. I mean, it's pizza. Of course I would have a slice. Yeah, but then you already ate. Yeah, but it's pizza. But you're full. Yeah, but it's pizza. So you have to eat it. Yeah, of course I have to eat it. But then how much freedom do you really have? And it's at this point that the penny usually drops. Freedom around food is often seen one-sided. People want to eat what they want to eat when they want to eat it. But what most people don't realize, me included, is the importance of the other part. Meaning being able to not eat what you do not want to eat. Now, this story and this logic really resonated with me at this point. Because looking back and looking at the struggles I was having, this was exactly my problem. I knew what I wanted to eat. I knew what I didn't want to eat. Yet I found myself eating the stuff I didn't want to eat. So I didn't have any freedom in that. And it really felt like that. I really felt trapped by some unknown force within me, causing me to eat stuff that I like, of course, but that I didn't want to be having anymore. And so the promise that this exact point would be fixed made me really excited for the program. I won't go through the entire experience of the program. I have been, like I said, I created the YouTube channel, and I created a video for every week in the program detailing my experiences and how it was. So I invite you to go and check that out if that is something you're interested in. But I want to touch on a couple of things that were really profound for me from this entire journey. Now, one of the principles that WILDFIT works on is that our feeling of hunger isn't actually hunger. Or rather, what we usually call hunger is 6 different types of hunger. The easiest example of this that a lot of people already know, and that was one that I knew, is thirst. Throughout evolution, throughout history, our ability to get clean water wasn't too great. Depending on where in the world we lived, it could be very difficult to get clean, safe to drink water. And so we evolved to get most of our liquids actually from what we ate. Over time, our brains adapted to this and started to give the signal, okay, we need more liquids. So we sent the signal that you're hungry. Because hungry meant food, and food provided most of the liquids. That was all great, but nowadays that kind of works against us. Because if you're thirsty and you think you get this feeling of hunger, it's okay, I'm hungry, I could eat. Maybe I'll just have a Snickers bar or Mars bar. And then half an hour later, your body is like, I gave the signal that we needed liquids, but we still haven't got any. I need liquids. Send the hunger signal again. And so you get hungry again. Like, Okay, I need to eat more. And you get into this cycle of just trying to eat, and maybe you're eating all this stuff that isn't very constructive, and more importantly here, that doesn't have any liquids for you. So you just keep eating while you don't need to eat, and you're not getting liquids while that is the thing that you need. And so that's very deceptive if you are not fully consciously aware of it. Now, one of the hungers that is actually legitimate is nutritional hunger, of course. We need nutrients and we need stuff to burn for energy. So that is a legitimate hunger, but most of the others are not. The most interesting and the most relevant to me was what he called emotional hunger. Humans are meaning-making machines. We try to attach a meaning to everything, and especially throughout childhood, this happens a lot, and it's not always the best pattern. So emotional eating often happens because you are trying to satisfy an emotion. You're either trying to get rid of an emotion or you're trying to get a specific emotion. For example, the classic image of after a breakup, sitting on the couch and eating a tub of ice cream. Those aren't nutrients you need. You aren't hungry. You're sad, and you're trying to fix that by eating ice cream. A lot of these patterns get created during childhood already, when you're, for example, a kid falls and skins his knee and starts to cry. So his mother comes up and immediately says something like, "Oh, well, here, have some ice cream and you'll feel better." From that point on, the child will connect these two events. Okay, ice cream makes me feel better. And if you don't become aware of this the rest of your life, you can unconsciously feel bad and have to have ice cream. And I was doing a lot of this, not with ice cream, but I was having a lot of emotions and a lot of foods that I specifically had to try and get rid of these emotions. But if it worked, that were one thing. But the real kicker here is that it doesn't actually work, at least not in the way that you think it does. Throughout the program, you're guided to really start paying attention to what is happening at any point during your food, during deciding to eat something and eating something. And the funny thing that you figure out here is that if you're trying to make yourself, for example, feel better by eating that ice cream, if it was the ice cream that made you feel better, you would only start to feel better once you ate the ice cream. But what you start to notice is that the moment you decide you are going to eat the ice cream, you start to feel better. Meaning that this feeling is coming from inside of you, and the ice cream doesn't have anything to do with it. Now, the really mean thing about this is that if you pay even more attention throughout, oftentimes the food you're using to trigger a certain emotion is not only not triggering that emotion, it actually makes you feel worse. Now, humans are very bad at correlating data over longer periods of time. And so if you decide to eat something that will make you feel better, you start to immediately feel better. Then you start to eat it. And maybe half an hour later, you get stomach cramps because of the dairy that was in there, for example. You won't link that back to what you ate. And so you're only increasing the awareness that this thing made me feel good, while it is actually long-term making you feel really bad. The way that this program remedies these things is by giving you the tools to start to become aware of this. Like they explain, if you walk into a car, into a showroom to buy a car, if you know the sales tactics, then you are way less likely to fall for it. And so from week 1 on, you are guided to really pay attention to, okay, how am I feeling throughout the food timeline? How am I feeling when I decide, before I decide to eat something? How am I feeling after I decide to eat something? So you can see that maybe it triggered the emotion already. How am I feeling the first bite I have something? Because that often is good, but equally often it isn't as good as you were actually expecting or hyping it up in your mind to be. And then how good is it subsequent bites? And often you don't even notice that normally. By paying attention to it, you suddenly start to notice, okay, I actually don't like this as much as I thought I did. And then finally looking into, okay, how is this? How am I feeling half an hour or an hour later? And this is really where the magic happens. By seeing time and time again, okay, I am now feeling way worse than I was before I ate this. You really become aware of this food does not equal this emotion. It sounds easy, but it makes all the difference. And by training this awareness, the program guides you to train this awareness, and at the same time guides you through preventing you from having any of the 6 hungers. So, for example, making sure you're not stressed and making sure that you drink enough water throughout the day. So one by one, the 6 hungers start to disappear. And you start to become aware of what food is doing, both food that is affecting you negatively and food that is affecting you positively. Later on in the program, you start to end up at a place where all of the foods that could be toxic or could not be compatible with you have been taken out. And so you are only eating foods that make you feel good. And for the first time in my life, I actually experienced what it was like when I was fully healthy. I went through 2/3 of the program. It was a long time. And then suddenly one day I woke up and I felt like, man, I'm actually well rested. I'm never well rested when I wake up. And subsequent days, this started to continue on, build up and build up. And every day I was feeling more rested. I started noticing that I had no afternoon slump. I had more energy throughout the day. My mind started getting a lot clearer. And my days just became more pleasant altogether. But the most profound thing, and the thing I really wasn't expecting, is at the end of that week, my mind really started working. Non-stop ideas came to me. I solved problems and things that I had been thinking about for years in some cases. all with ease. I became way more creative and way better at problem solving. And the procrastination, that is also something that I've had more or less for my entire adult life. That was gone. I was just acting on all of my ideas. All of the good ones, anyway. And of course, physically, I didn't really want to change physically. I was pretty happy with my weight, but I ended up changing anyway. And my body composition changed. I lost some weight, and I ended up feeling way better about the way I looked. Sure, I would like to gain some muscle still now, but I am at the leanest that I've ever been. Still at a healthy place, but at the low side of the healthy place. And people just unprompted started telling me, "You look great. You've lost so much weight. You look so radiant, energetic." Which is just which was just extra evidence for me to know that it was really paying off. One of the overall things that came together in this time was a decision. I'd been thinking long about what I need to do with all this health information, and the idea that finally came together was I need to spread these ideas. I need to guide other people. I need to let people know that this is the way you can feel. This is the way you're supposed to feel. And so that it became clear that I needed to become a coach in this stuff. And that all just started a chain of ideas and projects that I'm working out, one of which is the one that we have here. Through the last 2 years, health has been on everybody's mind. With the pandemic, with COVID, everybody is aware of their health in one form or another. But a lot of people are only aware of, I don't want to get sick, and are worrying about things like, how many times do I need to wash my hands? Do I need to get the vaccine? Do I not need to get the vaccine? What will that do to me? Do I need to wear a mouth mask the rest of my life in order to stay healthy? These are all excellent questions for another day. But what is missing from most of the debate, especially if you're someone who religiously follows the news and that sort of outlets, is all of the basics. Sure, there's other stuff to do, but why wouldn't you start with your diet? Why wouldn't you start with building up your immunity in a natural way? That's not to say that you shouldn't also take a vaccine, or you shouldn't, but why not start there? Why not fix your diet? Now, I know that a lot of people don't really consider this, and a lot of people do, but just don't really know how to approach this. Everybody is anxious around health nowadays, and a lot of it is misinformation or lack of information, or just being scared of how difficult it would be to actually fix your diet and then just ending up doing nothing. Now, what I experienced through this, that I'm now more than ever convinced of, is that fixing your diet and just starting to feel great in your own body is not only really important, but it can just be really easy and can actually be really fun to do. Whether it be by yourself or by following a program like WILDFIT or by doing coaching with me or with someone else, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you somehow take charge of your health. I really, really would like it if the people around me and everybody really could feel the way I am feeling these days, could feel the transformation that I had. And yeah, I think everybody should experience what good health feels like as much as possible. So with that said, thank you everybody for watching, for being here. Take care. Take charge of your health and start living your life in optimal flow.